Okay, so here it is. I've kind of marked out the affected area, as you can see. It's almost like a doorway. Now, if I just like put my hand to it, it's like, you know, It's like, you see that? Straight through. I think I'm gonna try going in. It's like a whole building. I mean, I'd fall through a wall. It's ridiculous. Yeah, seems pretty empty. Try over there, maybe? No, please.
How was that intro? Was that intro good? I'm standing up today because I wanted an excuse to use this microphone holder to hold one of my DJI things. So I recently watched the Backrooms movie, and I honestly thought it was pretty good. And I thought it was so good that I felt like it warranted an entire video dedicated to it. Again, I'll preface that this video does contain spoilers for Backrooms, and if you have not watched the film or don't want to be spoiled, then perhaps give this video a miss or come back when you've watched it. Overall, I thought the film was really good. I liked the pacing. I was very captivated, engaged, enthralled the entire time, and you know, there wasn't really a single moment where I felt myself lost, I guess. The story itself was pretty solid, and I didn't really think that it took away from what the Backrooms originally was supposed to be. I liked the creative liberties and, you know, the fact that it was an entirely separate story from Kane Parsons or Kane Pixel's own web series. Like, it felt like a fresh new take that I'd never seen before, and, you know, for a concept that has almost been milked dry, it was pretty refreshing to see. And I did find myself pretty scared, you know, as a horror film. It did its job. My heart rate was definitely elevated for a lot of that film, and I was, you know, safe to say, on the edge of my seat. I understand that this video could end up being quite controversial as we go more in depth, because I'm hearing that there are some seriously mixed reviews when it comes to this film. People either seem to absolutely love it or think that it was just absolutely terrible, 0 out of 10, the worst thing they've ever watched in their lives. I have chosen to avoid those reviews because I don't want their biased opinions to possibly influence my own, and I'd rather keep this like as pure and my own interpretations as possible. For the plot, I also thought the plot was pretty good. I did not expect to be taken on such a journey full of twists and turns and have my expectations completely subverted. I already knew going into it that the film wasn't going to have anything to do with Kane's own web series. I knew it was going to be a completely separate take, and that everything that had been established prior was going to be essentially thrown out the window, defenestrated, if you will. The Backrooms movie focuses a lot on the concept of memories, and the characters both have their own motives and backstory that do tie them in with the existence of the Backrooms. Clark, the store owner, seems to be struggling with some sort of ego complex that had him kicked out of his own home that he was paying for by his wife, and Mary is struggling with traumatic childhood memories and, you know, the loss of her mother who succumbed to mental health. And with this movie's rendition of the Backrooms being a place of memories, it definitely makes sense that these characters were drawn into, or perhaps even permitted entry into, this complex of memories. I will be diving slightly deeper into the film's deeper messaging, or at least my own interpretation of such. And if you would like to see that, then stick around to the end of the video and we'll do a quick deep dive. Moving on to The Fly. So, when I was watching, I think, the second trailer for the Backrooms, I noticed this tiny black dot in a few frames of one of these, like, wide-angle fisheye lenses of, I think, Mary. I was watching it in a Discord call with my friend, and I said, they let a fly in on set. That was a mistake. I don't think that fly should have been there. And then I quickly retracted my statement and said that fly is going to be a key plot point. That fly is going to be the core focus of the movie. I think that fly is actually the main character, the protagonist. And then the fly actually had a key role in the film. So Matt Pat, get owned. I am the theorist. As for the filming and the shots, I think the most obvious thing that needs to be pointed out is the fact that the Backrooms had a 30,000 square foot physical set that most of the shots were taken on. I think opting for a physical set over CGI was a great move here because it just brought the Backrooms slightly closer to reality. It made it feel like a place that could exist somewhere. It could exist somewhere in the real world. And, you know, perhaps maybe the next time you're walking down the street, you might think slightly more about that next step you're about to take. A lot of the cinematography as well was done really well. Something I found incredibly fascinating was that they somehow managed to make even real-world settings look almost nonsensical or artificial. For example, there's a scene where you can see the furniture store in its entirety, with this expanse of rolling green hills behind it. The thing is about these hills is that they are completely barren. They are empty. There are no people, buildings, trees, livestock. They almost seem planted, or like somebody who didn't understand what a hill is or what tends to be on a hill just placed them there. And these sort of fraudulent environments appear almost everywhere throughout the films, sort of almost like slight nods to some of the fan-made and fan-favorite levels. We're not going to get into those in this video, or maybe we will. We might go off script by the end, but everything just instilled this sense of unease, like you weren't supposed to be there, or that this wasn't a place fit for inhabitants. And whilst I'm not a filmmaker, I have done a number of creative projects, and I love these tiny details that sort of just add to the atmosphere. Speaking of atmosphere, how well did the film do in the horror department? I honestly think the horror element of the film was done extremely well. It's no surprise by now that Kane Parsons, the 20-something-year-old director of the film, has an extremely keen sense for what makes for good horror. One of the things that stood out to me during the viewing experience was that instant sense of claustrophobia that you get the second Clark enters the Backrooms, which I thought was especially odd considering just how vast the Backrooms actually are. That thought that runs rampant in the back of your mind that the entrance, or I guess the exit, could just close on him at any moment, unbeknownst to him, just adds to that feeling and just makes you feel unsettled. The film definitely does have its share of body horror, with there being some very grotesque and malformed beings being a key plot point of the film. There's a bit of flesh gouging too, if you can even call it that. I guess it's more just a fleshy version of cotton, but regardless, it was enough to certainly make you feel uncomfortable. However, the found footage scenes really take the prize for the best horror in that film. The first person perspective really allows you to become the characters, meaning there is no sense of security in just being a third party observer. There are things moving out of sight, there are sounds with no clear visible source, and the camera movements really portray the emotions of the characters in a way that a third person perspective just can't. And there's even a part of film where something that isn't quite human decides it wants to take the role of the cameraman. I'll spare you the details, but God, that was an interesting scene. It was so tall. Now, before I move on to what I believe to be the deeper meaning of the film, I'm going to go over what I think are some issues, I guess. Of course, nothing is perfect, and I'm not going to say that this film is without its flaws. The main one being that I don't think this film is what I would consider universally watchable. By this, I just mean that to understand the plot, you have to really want to understand the plot, and some people just aren't willing to commit the brain power to do so. If what you're after is a horror film full of nothing but cheap scares, gore, fan service, this film isn't for you. This film will make you think, and I'm pretty sure the director knew this. There's a quote in the film that goes something along the lines of, your brain will take the neural pathway of least resistance. And that's just saying that your brain doesn't like to work harder than it needs to. Sort of in the same vein is that the ending will catch a lot of people off guard. There is no real conclusion to the end of the film, and a lot of what happens afterwards is really up to your own interpretation. I honestly didn't mind this approach. It really stimulated my brain and left me buzzing with theories and hot takes, but I understand that this isn't what a lot of people look for in a film. People like conclusions to things. People don't like being left on cliffhangers. Think of Spider-Verse. You know, people are very, I guess, like mixed on the fact that, you know, that film ended on such an obvious cliffhanger. As I said earlier, I haven't actually seen any other review on this film, positive or negative, because I just didn't want them to skew my own opinion. I wanted this to be raw and pure, just for the camera. Regardless, I think that the hate the film was receiving is unnecessary. As far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think most of the hate is coming from the young brain-rotted individuals that don't like the fact that Kane didn't include all of the other levels, the fan-made SCP grade garbage that people came up with and claimed to be canon. Which, you know, I'm going to get into this now. Why did we have to turn such a cool concept, just this idea of an endless nightmare space with no clear escape, into something on par with the SCP universe? It's like, it really wasn't necessary. Like, it's like the original post said something about God save you if you hear something because it probably heard you. So it implies that there was something there, but was that not good enough for people? Also, I only just recently found out that that picture came from like 2019. I swear that's been a concept, like the Backrooms was a concept since like 2016. I'm getting a weird Mandela effect going on here. But I'm passionate about this. Keep the stuff in the SCP universe, keep it out of the Backrooms. Backrooms didn't need it. Okay, now, what is the deeper meaning of this film? What is the message that was trying to be conveyed through the very strange and confusing side plot of the woman with the weird childhood trauma? Keep in mind that this is my own interpretation of the events and may not be exactly what Kane had in mind for the film, and perhaps somebody a bit more talented and knowledgeable than me will come out with a bit more in-depth of a review and completely overwrite everything I've said here. Backrooms is a movie all about memories, and how a person's memories can so easily become distorted. Something that was speculated leading up to the film's release was that it was going to be an allegory for conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, whilst I think there is some truth to that, I don't think that's the entire story. My personal takeaway was that the film more so focused on the fact that people's memories are so fickle, so easily warped by their ego, their trauma, into something that's more convenient or comfortable, something more digestible. In the film, Clark talks about how the Backrooms act as a kind of archive or storage space that remembers things, and that the more that it does, the less it does. And there's a lot of truth to this in the real world too. The more you retell a story, the more details get changed or lost, and by the end, you've got something that is so far removed from the original concept that it may as well be a different story. In the same way, if something is uncomfortable to remember, or perhaps you're oblivious to the truth or your own shortcomings, your brain will twist what was into something more digestible, thus forgetting more as it tries to remember. In Clark's case, I think he was so blinded by his own ego and sense of self-worth that the him that was remembered by the Backrooms strove to literally consume all who disagreed with his own ideals, to the point where even he, after accepting and embracing stagnation and refusing to change, was eaten alive by his own creation. I'm a little less confident about what's going on with Mary. There's a moment in the film where Mary takes essentially the embodiment of her trauma and uses it to escape the threat immediately in front of her, almost as though she's finally breaking free from those shackles and moving on. Though after escaping, the scene that follows sort of leaves her feeling null and empty. As the camera zooms in on her face, the audio slowly gets more muffled, as though she's unsure of what she's even experiencing in real time. And then it cuts to the version of those events that were remembered by the Backrooms in all of its monochrome yellow goodness, much like how Clark's ego was reflected in this very disagreeable 8-foot-tall self-image. I think this version of Mary is the hollowness inside of her that was just kind of preserved. I could be entirely wrong about this, but this is my own understanding of the plot, and if I'm wrong, feel free to chuck your own theories or interpretations in the comments. If I read them, I'll maybe give it a like, give it a reply. In summary, I thought the film was pretty damn good. Whilst not for everyone, I'm so glad that we're finally seeing some variety in cinema. With Iron Lung's theatrical release and now this, I think this is seriously going to influence and inspire a bunch of talented creators to finally try their luck with the film industry. And whilst a lot of them aren't going to succeed, the ones that do, I'm hoping will change cinema for the better. Maybe then Disney will realize that live-action remakes are not the best way to do things, and that we don't actually care about realistic graphics if they just look dull and lifeless. But yeah, I think that's all for this video. Definitely a different format. I'm standing up for a change. I've got a different microphone, even though I've got this one right here. I'm hoping that I can overlay myself onto a bunch of different backgrounds using the depth map tool as well. So do you see something here? Put me in SCP-096's containment area. Look, he's there. That's him. He's right there. Hope you had a good time, and hope you see you in the next video. I honestly didn't mind this. I honestly didn't mind this approach. I left the Simon. Oh my god. I'm getting my consonants mixed up.